My name's Owain Campton and I'm running for GUU President.
Okay, so I just wanted to start with your manifesto and stuff like that.
Sounds like a good place to start.
So how do you intend to go about establishing a sabbatical president by 2022, and off the back of that, can you outline some of the benefits that students would see if the GUU was being run with a sabbatical president?
Yes, of course, I think this is a really good place to start. So currently, I'll start first of all with the benefits and then I'll go into just how I go about establishing it. So currently we're the only union on campus that doesn't have a sabbatical officer in Pilates. We're also one of the only unions in the UK that doesn't have a sabbatical officer at all. This just means that between myself as honorary secretary and the president, we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot and we're still having to juggle our studies. There's some issues with this. This means that when you have issues of discipline or of complaints, it just fundamentally means that the president doesn't have quite as much time to deal with this. By introducing a sabbatical president, they have the time, they have the energy to be able to go out and help support the students and actually respond to all the queries and the complaints and the issues of discipline to make sure that we are dealing with things in a timely and professional manner. Not saying that we aren't currently, I'm just saying that because of our classes, it's a struggle. On top of this, it gives, there's so many benefits. Sorry, I could talk about this for hours. There's the fact that it just means you now have a paid student that is in place to support the rest of the board. Because currently Matt would love to be able to sit on all our operational committees and all our standing committees to be able to give guidance and help and support, but he just can't, just because he doesn't have the time. With having a sabbatical officer that's in 9 to 5, 5 days a week, it means that they will be able to actually support the rest of the board. This means that you look like standing committees getting more done. It looks like the rest of the board actually being able to fulfil their manifestos because they're getting adequate guidance. Loads of things there. Another issue at the moment is because of balancing the class and meetings with the university, Matt is struggling to be able to best represent, I would want to apologise to Matt, I don't mean that in a negative way, but he has to juggle both his classes and representing the union to the best of his ability. This means that he could literally be in a law lecture 1 minute and then next is in a meeting with Dorothy Welsh or the chief operating officer of the university trying to fight for the union's corner, which means that we aren't just able to represent the union best at the cross-campus level or the university level. It does then also just have run-on benefits for meaning that the sabbatical officer can interact with other sabbatical officers, meaning more cross-campus collaboration and all those. So in terms then of your kind of first point, how would I go about executing this? So I was involved with the Constitutional Committee last year. We were already kind of looking into this. There was some kind of backlash from some people that think, the union's not burned out so far and not burned down, so why would we start having a sabbatical officer now? But we did investigate and we had communicated with Dorothy Welsh and other senior management at the university, and they said the funding is available. They will actually give us the funding to be able to fund sabbatical officer. This means that we wouldn't be taking it out of the block grant that we currently get, which means that we're not losing money towards all the other brilliant things that the union puts on, but we will be able to actually have that officer in place to run the building and have the benefits I said before. It will also involve us having to rejig our executive because it's, at the moment, for instance, GUU, if you look at the sabbatical officer with the other two executive members, it looks like the sabbatical officer does about 85% of the work and then the other two positions between them do the remaining 15%. Currently for us it's around about 40% for me, 40% for Matt, maybe 20% at the most for the Aston Sec or whatever numbers you want to attribute, but it's a lot top heavier in terms of the ONSEC and the president. By being able to rejig the executive, it means that those other two positions will be able to focus a lot more carefully on the work that they are doing and give more time to it, and the president is able to take up the slack that is currently lost by the fact that we're all doing classes. The reason that I'm able to do this is because I'm probably the first person to run for president that has actually sat, even briefly, in all positions. So I have been asked on SEC, even though it was just a month. I do know its remit. I was involved in signing all the sponsorship agreements, renegotiating those and getting that sorted, and interacting with clubs and SOCs. I'm the honorary secretary now, which means that I deal with all the discipline. I deal with DAF Friday. I deal with all those kind of things, the budgets, the high security and things like that, which means that I do just know the roles inside and out. I know which parts of the job can be moved up to the president, how we can rejig that executive to make sure it's actually fully functional under sabbatical. So I believe we need a sabbatical because of all the reasons that I outlined in the benefits, but I also believe that I am just the one that has the ability to now execute it because of my experience.
Brilliant. So obviously off the back of that as well, a lot of your manifesto appears to target these like wider structure issues that will then benefit the future running of the GUU. But obviously, is there anything you intend to implement that students would see the immediate effects of?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So I had, in my manifesto, I talk about Sabbatical, I talk about member engagement, and I also talked about my experience and how that's able to benefit it. So within membership engagement, I do talk about the structural things that I want to rejig and reshape. But the immediate things that people will see is, because of the experience that I have, every single member of the board that comes on next year will be supporting the fact that I know how to do the job, I know how to best support them, and I know their roles, which means that in everything that they are promising, the manifestos, we're more likely to be able to get them out. Because let's be honest, if you look at PSM manifestos or others manifestos over the years, it's about 90%, oh, we're going to, remove minimum card spending, or we're going to, reduce entry to Hive, or things like that. But they're not things that can necessarily be executed through the year because of financial reasons or X, Y, and Z. Because I know the ins and outs of it, I'm able to best support them to be able to actually execute their points. It's not necessarily going to be exactly what was on the tin when they initially ran, but we will be able to find kind of a midpoint to bring it out. On top of this, in terms of the membership engagement, this year we've seen a massive increase in the number of members that are coming through our door, both on Hive Thursday, where we've reached capacity multiple times through this year, as I'm sure you've seen through Glassnow posts or whatever, as well as the number of people that are running for PSM. And I think that's great. I think it's great, and I think it's a testimony to the work that our board has done this year and how openly and friendly they are, and just the pure graft that they've done to make this place feel like a welcoming environment. However, currently we don't have the systems in place to make sure that, for instance, all complaints are coming to the president. People don't necessarily know that if you have a complaint, write to the president. If you have a suggestion, write to the president. If there's an issue of discipline where another member has made you feel uncomfortable, you write to the honorary secretary. That's a bit confusing. So the thing that I am reintroducing, and it isn't a new thing, it's something that we've used before, but it's kind of just disappeared off to one side, is our complaints and suggestions form. This is something that can also be done anonymously. So if it's a low-level complaint or about a service we provide or a suggestion on something you want to see, you can write on this anonymous form. You can submit it either in the suggestions box, which is under the President's board, or you can do it via an online portal, which means that we can better see what areas we're lacking in and what areas we can improve in. So this will then end up with us just being more engaging with the students. As well as that, I'm sorry, I know I go on and on, I know this role so well, I'm introducing first year positions on all standing committees. Now, I was a convener, so I was in charge of one of the standing committees. I know how they operate, I know how first years can get involved, because I actually brought on first years myself when I was libraries convener. So this will just give more opportunity to these first years. It means that these first years, if they decide next year to run for PSM, know a wee bit more about how the board runs, which, yes, as you said, is like a long-term benefit, but it just means that in the future, we just do have slightly better strategy or better experience. As well on all the operational committees, which a lot of people don't know about, which includes, say, a welfare committee or a Hive committee or sustainability committee or kitchens committee. I'm going to open up that to ordinary members as well, not just board members. This means that, yet again, more experience and all the benefits that I just talked about there with first year members, but it just means that not all of the pressure is being put on our PSMs, our present student members, which means that we are going to be able to put on more welfare events because there are ordinary members that can help lead them and run them. We can put on more events about sustainability, and we can target those problems more effectively. So it just means more opportunity, more events, and we're actually able to reach out to our memberships more ultimately.
So you keep mentioning on the PSM there's so many people running, and establishing the union as more than just Hive and Beer Bar seems to be of intense importance for all of the candidates running for different positions this year. How will you maintain Fitful as the opening of the James McLean Smith Learning and Teaching Hub starts to draw students away from this end of campus to the other end?
This is funny. So as some people may know, that I ran last year, and I ran on a campaign that was looking at the future and the sustainability and how we actually deal with it. And we do want to start thinking about it. It is something that we're talking about already within the Board of Management and definitely within the Senior Board of Management as to how we deal with that. I don't think that this is necessarily an issue that is going to be solved within one presidency. It's not going to be something that I'm going to be able to solve at this flick of a switch, but it will be solved when you have better processes in place, more experience on the board, more kind of corporate knowledge, as we call it, which means that the knowledge is passed on one board to the next, which means that we keep on finding ways to keep people pulling down and coming down to our union, to be able to use it as a social space, both as Hive and Beer Bar, but also as a club and society base, being allowed for Sicilians to be able to use our space for for rehearsal, or the drama, or the panto for the dentist, being able to use our space as their venue and things like that. Because, yet again, I keep using the word experience, because I know the roles of all the positions on board, especially AST OnSec and OnSec, being able to support them in their roles, AST OnSec specifically in connecting with clubs and societies, and OnSec with the wider membership, and be able to help put in the corporate knowledge there so that we maintain going kind of from power to power. It would be something that we would be looking at and having a strategic plan, and dealing with the fact that the university is trying to essentially compete with us in terms of commercial venue, and that is something that I really want to speak to the university about and ask why they are essentially not fully kind of stepping on our territory or anything like that. But they are taking away a lot of things in terms of the number of people that are going to be using our place for, say, the kitchen, the union kitchen, or using our place for a place of study and things like that, which just means less people through the door. Yeah, again, experience. I know how to communicate with the university. I already sit in meetings with the university. I'll be able to uphold this as we go on throughout the next year to make sure that we all benefit over the next 5 years.
Brilliant. So also, the GUU and board relationships have always been a topic of conversation around campus, I think, as well. And the GUU is the only student body to still hand count ballots, and it doesn't allow the reopening of nominations. So we have to ask, of course, do you believe that the GUU might have a democracy problem? That's
a good question. Last year, yet again, you asked me the same question, and I think actually this year I've changed my opinion a wee bit. Last year I said that the problem is wider. It's about student engagement, and I've already discussed student engagement already, so I won't go into that at the moment. I think that there's a lot of things that we can move forward on, and we can definitely move forward towards, say, online nominations and online ballots. It would definitely made my job a lot easier this year, instead of getting all the paper ballots and having to type up manifestos and things like that. I think, though, that this is as I said last year, this is a kind of wider issue. We can't just jump straight into it and just be like, yes, we're doing it all online immediately. I think that's the end point we want to get to, but we need to make sure that that membership engagement is up first, because we need to make sure people are getting involved and not just kind of like going online and just like voting 1 through 5 through the people that they see alphabetically. Instead, we want people to be engaged with the manifestos. We want people to be able to actually see what the platforms people are running on. And in fact, within the next few days, I'll be releasing all the manifestos online as part of my role as OnSec via PDF, so that anyone can actually see the platforms instead of having to come in and look at our notice board. Now, yes, they'll still have to come in and do paper ballots, but we do need to just deal with engagement first and move towards that in the long run. Saying that, though, I definitely have been looking into kind of the opportunities of online balloting, because there's definitely one thing that I want to maintain. It's that kind of that show that happens at the end of counting night, where you see the kind of scores go up and you see who's eliminated first, and people are all in the debates gallery just watching it and waiting to find out who's next. And there are mechanisms and there are softwares available that we can actually do that and contain the same atmosphere, which I think is quite important to who we are as a union.
So the union hosts several club nights now, so Thursday and Saturday Hive, and obviously they also host the big event days, so like St Patrick's Day, the ones they do at the end of the year. On social media forums, like Glasgow, of course, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the treatment of vulnerable drunk people on the hands of the GUU. Is there anything you intend to review or implement that might improve the safety and security for these students on nights out?
Yeah, I think I'll first off say that the security and safety of our students is paramount in everything we do. So I think that this comes first from maybe a misunderstanding of what we do, how we interact with students on a club night, and then I'll go into a wee bit about what I intend to kind of follow through on. So currently, we all, as board members, have a duty of care. We all look out for drunk students. When we find drunk students, we don't just kick them out like any other club in Glasgow. What we do is we bring them to a room, we get them water, we get them sobered up, we make sure that they have either a friend to go home with, they have a phone, they have their keys, and then at that point, if they don't have the phone, then what we do is we'll use kind of any mechanism to try and find out who their friends are and who we can connect with to try and either pick them up. But on top of that, we also have taxi services available. If we find drunk students that are unable to get home, we will send them home in a taxi, or we will make sure, first of all, that they're sobered up and send them home in a taxi, and we have that service available to us, which means we are looking out for them to the best of our ability. Now, there are complaints, as you said, on Glasgow, and I would welcome more complaints to come through our mechanism, but as I said earlier, people are not necessarily too aware or don't know who to go to, and I would like to deal with those on a kind of case-by-case basis. With regards our security and SGL, as ONSEC, I was in charge of that, and I was looking to make sure that this year I've been in discussion, we've made sure that the majority of the SGL members that we have coming in through our door all have mental health first aid training as well. This means that when you're having students with, you know, a lot of deadlines and stress and a lot of alcohol, you may have the occasional kind of students that are just having their mental health problems crop up to the surface. This means that we do have on a club night stewards that are actually able to deal with it. On top of that, there are a number of board members that are trained as well, myself included, in dealing with this with the NHS mental health first aid. And there's already the plans in place to make sure that every single executive member next year has this training. That means that on every club night, where we always have a duty exec member on, there is going to be at least one person that is a student that is trained up in this. The rest of the board will also be trained up in the Mind Your Mate workshop, which is already, the training is already kind of, we're planning that already to make sure that that's part of the training that we want them to do, which means, again, on club nights, they are there to be able to safeguard and look out for their students. As well as that, there's first aid training that we're making mandatory for all board members as well as drug awareness and alcohol awareness training. I would say that, like, there are complaints that are out there, and I do want to make sure that this union feels as safe to absolutely everyone as possible. And yet again, from my experience and from what I know of the positions and where we're at and where we can go, I can definitely lead that forward in the next year.
So how would you respond to the challenge that GUU prices, entrance, drinks are incredibly high in comparison to student nights in town, and this might be hindering student experience for some?
I can understand that in terms of, like, we always get the complaint when we have to increase our prices, that people are like, oh, a pint of fun is now $5.50. I mean, when I started university, it was definitely not that level. The big problem at the moment is that currently we are getting the funding from the university to be able to essentially keep our lights on and just about employ our staff. We need to be making that turnover to make sure that we are actually able to provide all the opportunities that we do, from debates to the libraries and the magazine to the games events we do and the entertainments we put on and end of term function and things like that. In this next few months, we'll be putting our budget allocation to the university, and I've been involved in the conversations around that. I've been discussing it as a member of the trustees and with the president as already, and as ONSEC, and knowing the ins and outs of our club night, and we will be pushing the university for them to recognise, listen, the amount that you're giving us currently under our block grant allocation is just enough to keep the lights on. We want to be able to be a space that is actually cost effective for students, that students actually are able to come and enjoy and improve their student experience on. So I appreciate that the prices do seem high, and they do crop up because we have to deal with inflation and rising kind of costs of keeping the lights on and things like that. But this is an issue that we need to fight the university on, and it's not an issue that we can deal with immediately. I would love to bring the prices of pints down, but it's not something that we can do without getting the university on board.
Okay, and just last two questions, probably some of the more important ones to students at the minute. Under your leadership, what will the cost of a pint of fun look like? Will it rise? And is there any chance we'll be getting tenants into Beer Bar?
So at the moment, we're a part of the Northern Service Pact. I have brought it up to board that in any future pacts that we are engaging with, we should make sure that students are always engaged with and their opinions rise, because the reason that we went towards Carling was because tenants would have been forcing us to charge something like £3, £3.50 for a pint, and if you're getting the kind of cheap pint on the bar, you don't want to be paying necessarily £3 for it. In terms of the pint of fun, there's nothing that I can promise until I go away to the university and I'm actually able to negotiate them, given our block grant allocation, to make sure that we're able to keep the lights on and things like that. What I can say is we will always ensure that it is a good space for students, and it's a place that students feel welcome, safe in, and want to come on a regular occurrence.